Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Arianna Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, 500,000 babies are born preterm every year in the United States. And with such tiny, fragile bodies, sometimes the only nutrition they can tolerate is breast milk. And if the mother can't provide it, that's when hospitals turn to organizations like the Mother's Milk Bank. Now, Executive Director Pauline Sakamoto is with us today to talk about this organization. I had never heard of it. I think probably a lot of people have never heard of it. Start us off with what a milk bank does.
Well, we've been in operation for 40 years now in San Jose, California, and we are a nonprofit organization with a membership of maybe about 16 milk banks throughout the U.S., only 16 of us. And what we do is very similar to a blood bank in that we ask women to donate their breast milk, and we process the milk and we screen the donors, and then the milk is directly shipped to babies and families in the home or hospitals. And typically most of our clientele are the most vulnerable, the preterm infants and the infants that are going through major surgery. So it's really an incredible organization to be working with because it's such a lovely story and so many successes with these infants that get donor milk.
Now, something that I was unaware of is that babies, when they're preterm, they have such sensitive stomachs that formula isn't really an option for many of them, or if they have really strong allergies or something, really breast milk is their only option. I had no idea that that was the case.
Right, so we know that their intestinal tracts is really very immature, and human milk is basically, very species specific. So breast milk is really the best alternative for an infant, particularly the preterm infant. It also has a lot of immunity in it, besides the nutrition, but it has a lot of immunity and growth hormones, so these kids do quite well on the milk, and they actually leave the hospital quicker, and they grow just magnificently on the milk. So it's really important for them, and it's becoming a growing trend in the U.S. that if a child is a preterm infant, that more than likely the hospital and the neonatologist will order donor milk if the mom can't supply her own milk. But truly, mom's milk is the best, absolute best, because she harbors all the immunity that this child needs. So we're hoping that the moms do really try to breastfeed first.
But in some cases, the mothers aren't able to, they don't produce enough milk, or sometimes they're on medication that makes it impossible. There are a lot of reasons why mothers might want to, but they aren't able to, and that's why doctors have to turn to these milk banks.
Right, we consider ourselves somewhat of a bridge. So we know that these moms are really struggling to breastfeed. We get it. And what we're hoping is that they continue to try to succeed at breastfeeding with all the help that they can get at the hospital. But the donor milk is kind of a bridge, right, to feed the infant and to keep them going until mom's milk comes in. And it works beautifully for them.
Right, and you get donations from all over the country, right?
Absolutely. I think people misunderstand. They think that if you provide your milk to the San Jose Milk Bank, it only goes to the babies in San Jose. And in fact, our milk bank services 104 hospitals in 13 states. So we ship milk to Maryland and to California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, just whoever needs it. We get the calls every day, and which makes it difficult for us because we're constantly in need of donor milk.
Right, and as it turns out, we have donors right here in northern Nevada. I actually got a chance to meet her earlier this week, and I got to put together a little story about it, so take a look.
The milk that we donate, we just keep here.
Amanda Burnham-Marusic and her husband had a healthy baby girl in January. And along with all the other jobs of newborn parents, the two decided they could take it one step further, pumping and donating extra breast milk to help babies in the neonatal intensive care unit.
We both do it, and we do that little bit of extra effort because we do really enjoy paying forward the kindness that we got when our daughter was being really well taken care of in the hospital.
When their daughter was just 1 day old, a choking scare sent her to the NICU. Amanda and her husband only had to anxiously wait for a few hours, but that was enough to motivate them to help.
She was this full-term, happy baby surrounded by all these very small little babies that were really struggling, Being there in that really emotionally charged setting and feeling so grateful, it really solidified for us that if this was something that we were capable of doing, we really wanted to be able to do it.
Amanda pumps extra milk after late-night feedings, storing it up until she has enough to ship to the mother's milk bank. She says it's a gift that feeds her happiness just as much as it feeds the infants.
It makes me really happy when I get to send a shipment off because I feel like, oh, someone's going to get a full belly and they're going to feel really good, and it's going to make their parents feel like their baby's getting the best thing, that they can for them.
Really wonderful meeting her, and really a wonderful story. I think probably a lot of parents are looking at that thinking, I can't believe she does everything she does for her kid, but then also manages to do this one extra step. Do you hear stories like that often?
All the time. And we have about 900 donors a year. But it is truly a gift of life. And she didn't show this, or it wasn't shown, but her one bag may have 5 ounces in it, but it only takes 1/4 of an ounce to feed a preterm infant. So that one bag could literally feed 20 babies at one meal. So it's incredible what this human milk can do for these babies, and how many babies she can actually feed with all that milk she's got.
Right. I think
it's great.
I think I heard that some of their stomachs are so tiny it's the size of a marble. So that's all the milk it takes for one feeding.
Right. And many neonatologists love just to take just a swab of milk and put it inside their mouths, because that is an incredible way to build up their immune properties, to build up their immunity, so they don't get infections in the hospitals as easily as with some other type of feed.
Okay, now let's talk about some of the safety issues here. I think some of the people I spoke to about this story said, well, gosh, how do they make sure it's safe? I mean, do they pasteurize it? Yeah. Do you pasteurize it?
We do. We're licensed as a tissue bank, not as a food, but as a tissue bank in California and Maryland. So we do have strict regulations, very similar to blood banking and eye banks and bone banks. So it's very, very specific. Mm-hmm. And not only the fact that we test the donors, and she had to go through a screening procedure and a blood test, but we also pasteurize the milk, which is a heat treatment process. And reliably, this heat treatment process gets rid of all the extraneous pathogenic bacteria in the milk. And if in case this donor has some kind of viral infection, it will also eliminate the viruses in the milk. So we take extremely, very precautious care of that milk, and it's frozen, it's heat treated, and then it's frozen again. So people think, well, what's left? Mm-hmm. Actually, milk is just really viable even after all the freezing and heating. So there's plenty of nutrition in it, nothing's changed. The immune properties in it are still 80%, and obviously the growth hormones are there. So it is a very viable product. Right. Yeah, and babies, we've had babies who have just on donor milk and nothing else for life, and they do beautifully.
Right. Now, how great is the need across the country?
Well, there's studies that just came out that looked at NICUs, intensive care nurseries. So we're talking about the very, very fragile infant. And right now, we're looking at maybe 30% of the NICUs in the U.S. are actually using donor milk. Wow. So there's a wide need for donor milk. And some hospitals are actually waiting to get the milk. And so the milk banks, the nonprofit milk banks, we are, almost every year we have 2 or 3 opening up throughout the U.S. because it's such a need. And we know the cost savings, in regards to health care for this country is immense with donor milk, and teaching actually moms to breastfeed. And that's why we're really here, is to give the moms the ability and the success to breastfeed their child, because their milk is number 1. Right. Donor milk is number 2. It's pretty close, but really, we really want the mom's milk.
Mm-hmm. Now you need donors, right? This is a call for action.
This is a call for action. We definitely need milk. Last year, we increased our output by 20%, which is a large amount of milk, because typically last year we sent out 500,000 ounces of milk. So it was a huge upsurge. This year it's even more. So we're desperately looking for milk. There's a lot of preterm babies out there that need it.
Okay, Pauline. Well, if you see this and you would like to get some more information on donating, you can head to our website, ktvn.com. We have posted a link to the Mother's Milk Bank page there. You can learn all the information on what's required of donors and how you can get involved. Just read some of the literature, but definitely a worthwhile cause. Thank you so much for talking to us about it.
Thank you.
It really was,
I
great to meet
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's it for this episode of Face the State. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you next weekend.